You know, in my reviews I always try to leave my thoughts about the technical stuff for the end of the video, but GTA 4 is a special case. The PC port of this game is infamous for its quality, so I guess I have to make an exception this time. A mostly positive user review score that GTA 4 the Complete Edition has on Steam right now might give you a false impression that Rockstar finally bothered to fix it. But don't let yourself be fooled. As I've already said in my video about the latest major patch for GTA 4, the PC port is still a complete disgrace. For those of you who still can't believe that it's really that bad, here is one hard fact. Do you remember that game-breaking glitch in the final mission? Guess what? It's still there and not fixed after all these years. You can mash the space button as if your life depends on it, but you'll still fail this sequence and will have to replay almost the entire goddamn mission. Rockstar is literally selling a broken game, and it honestly baffles me that so many people give it a free pass despite such serious issues. I've seen other games that were utterly destroyed in user reviews for a small fraction of technical issues that GTA 4 has on PC. You know, I don't care if it was made by Rockstar, Popstars or Jesus Christ himself. If I paid for the game, I expect at very least to be able to complete it without disabling CPU cores in Task Manager. One thing for which Rockstar could have been praised is finally removing games for Windows Live and SecuROM DRM from GTA 4. But of course, there was a catch, and this catch is a Rockstar's own launcher. I got used to dealing with all this useless bloatware that big publishers are so keen to force into their games. But in the case of GTA 4, it's not just some harmless protection layer. Last year, when there was a GTA 5 giveaway on Epic Games Store, Rockstar servers were on live support for a few days due to increased traffic. You may ask how it's related to GTA 4 on Steam. Well, the thing is, if you don't sign in to your Rockstar account, it will take your save files hostage. Technically, this launcher has an offline mode, but I never managed to get it working. And for those of you who have missed the memo, GTA 4 is a purely single-player game now. When Rockstar replaced games for Windows Live with their own launcher, they completely removed all multiplayer features as well. And considering that it's been over 1 year already, it looks like they will not bring them back. So basically, we are dealing here with an always online DRM that makes zero goddamn sense in a 13-year-old single-player game. Meanwhile, players who use not so legal copies of GTA 4 don't have to worry about Rockstar servers going down in flames with their save files. Isn't that fascinating when pirates provide a better service than legit buyers can get from publishers? Don't get me wrong, I'm not asking you to pirate GTA 4 on PC, but those corporations making it really hard to support them when they pull shit like that.
Tell me that Kim Young-suk
Believe it or not, but all that is just the tip of the iceberg. In my previous video about this port, I've shown that in-game resolution is almost completely irrelevant to performance in this game. I was experiencing the same stuttering issues regardless if I was playing at 1080p or 4K. But to be perfectly honest, even though I had those issues while running this game on GTX 1080 Ti, maybe you'll be luckier than me in this regard. Because after playing GTA 4 on Steam for almost 45 hours, I still have no clue what the hell is going on with the performance in this game. In most cases, frame rate drops were really noticeable for me, but some other day it suddenly runs smooth as butter. I swear I've tried to find the cause of this weird performance behavior, but sadly I'm limited to my own PC and I couldn't run additional tests on different hardware for a more comprehensive technical analysis of this port. I've tried to follow some of the performance guides, added different launch options to the game's shortcut, installed DXVK, but none of those solutions helped me completely eliminate the frame stuttering in this game, so I just gave up and played it as it is. And yeah, I know it's still miles better than what you can get in console versions with their 720p resolution and below 30 average frame rate. I mean, no shit, we can brute force a decent performance with modern hardware, news at 11, but I don't see how it excuses Rockstar from doing nothing to fix those issues. But even if you'll be lucky enough and GTA 4 won't stutter like crazy on your rig, don't even think about trying to go beyond 60 FPS. Uncapped frame rate is causing all kinds of weird bugs in this game, from physics glitches to a zoomed-in camera in cutscenes. A few times I also experienced a broken frame issue, with a noticeable 1-second stutter between the camera transitions in some cutscenes. As for other noticeable graphical bugs, GTA 4 on PC has one of the worst textures flickering that I've ever seen. It's really noticeable in the distance and makes it look like the game is falling apart. And as far as I'm aware, there is no fix for that. From what I could tell, the console version doesn't have such an issue, and the lighting and vegetations are also superior to what we have on our platform. The PC port doesn't feature even a basic anti-aliasing solution, so the only way to make jaggies less noticeable is to use super sampling and play GTA 4 at the above native resolution. It also doesn't look like Rockstar properly packed the original game and DLCs together. One time I encountered an infinite loading screen loop when I accidentally started the main campaign and then tried to load a save file for the DLC. I've also read that some people were unlucky and got their save files corrupted, but thankfully I've managed to complete the game without losing my progress. Though I was really close to that. Can you believe that in May 2020, Rockstar rolled out the new update for GTA 4 that was corrupting the save files? It all ended well, they did the rollback and old saves were restored, but come on, how can Rockstar be so incompetent when it comes to PC versions of their games? The good thing about PC gaming is that if developers don't care about the quality of their ports, fans will probably manage to fix the game by themselves. GTA 4 is not the exception to this rule, and its modding community on PC is still quite active. But the thing is, after the latest update, most of the old mods have become incompatible with the game, so the only way to use them is to downgrade to older builds. And with the Steam Auto update and additional layer of Rockstar Games Launcher, the downgrading process is such a hassle I honestly had no desire to waste my time on this. As much as I appreciate the work of the community that is trying to fix all this hot mess, Rockstar is not some Japanese company that hadn't released their games on PC since the days when PC 98 was a thing. GTA is one of the world's biggest gaming franchises, and yet Rockstar bothered to do something about the PC version of GTA 4 only when they ran out of Games for Windows Live keys and couldn't keep selling the game as it is anymore. And they not just did a bare minimum of work, but also replaced all DRM with their own needless crap, removed online features and some of the music tracks while leaving all those numerous and well-known bugs untouched. That's why I think that praising GTA 4 on PC for its storyline or gameplay, while completely ignoring its disgraceful technical state, is not the right thing to do. It's absolutely not okay that I've been talking about this game for 10 minutes straight, and I still haven't done listing all the technical issues that I've encountered during my playthrough. This alone should tell you enough about the quality of this PC port, and why I do not recommend buying this game. PC players is clearly not the main focus for Rockstar, so I don't think I should encourage anyone to support this company. Okay. I think you already get it that GTA 4 on PC still has a lot of disappointing issues. Let's take a break from technical stuff. Now, the next part of this review is going to be slightly more subjective. It might sound obvious, but what I'm going to say next about GTA 4 is my personal opinion and not some undeniable facts. I'm saying this because from my previous experience of criticizing such beloved games, I know that some fans can take my criticism too close to their heart. And despite all the issues that I've just mentioned, I know that many people consider GTA 4 the best in the series, and I respect that. But I can't say that I enjoyed playing it myself that much, and I believe that even without all those technical flaws, this game has some fundamental problems. And even though I'll do my best to present solid arguments for my points, I admit that some stuff that I'm going to criticize is simply not to my taste.
First up, can you kill this shithead?
Sure.
Like, let's take the car handling physics in this game. I didn't enjoy them personally, but are they objectively bad? I don't think so, it's just developers have tried to do something more complex than before, but finding the right balance between realism and accessibility is not an easy task. Controls and physics in previous GTA iterations were rather simplistic, but they were so appealing for a broad audience because they weren't getting in your way. But convenience is the last word that you'll use to describe controls in GTA 4. The heavier vehicle handling in this game feels unique, but it also harshly punishes the player for every little mistake, leading to a lot of frustrating moments. Though on the bright side, the new physics creates an impression that every vehicle in this game has its own character. For the first time in the series, I started to distinguish cars not only by their appearance, but how they feel on the road. As much as I love the looks of sports cars, I was always trying to stay away from them as far as possible in this game, because it's like they barely have any grip on the road. Car handling in GTA 4 is challenging, and I can see why some people might prefer it. But driving in previous games was more straightforward and responsive, and thus it was more satisfying for me personally. The way how GTA 4 controls is perhaps the main reason why this game is so controversial. It's not just about vehicle physics, Rockstar dared to drastically revamp the movement mechanics as well. I admit that it was a bold decision, but that's one thing that I can hardly defend here. It's arguably one of the worst parts of this game. Walking and aiming in GTA 4 can be frustratingly unruly, it has a sluggish delay and lacks the snappiness of previous games. The camera is not very slick either and always trying to reset its own position, even when you try to look around while walking. It was a constant source of annoyance for me, so I really don't understand why there is no option to disable camera auto-centering. But aiming gets on a whole new level of sluggishness when you drive the car or hide behind the cover. It's like you have to fight your own mouse for every move of the crosshair. GTA 4 has one of the worst cover systems I've ever seen. It almost never works properly. The protagonist either hides in the wrong spot or awkwardly stuck in a weird position that doesn't really protect him from receiving damage. The whole system feels poorly thought out. I even managed to shoot through the wall a few times while being in cover. And it's a shame, because the actual gunplay in GTA 4 is excellent. Enemies finally stopped being like cardboard cutouts and uniquely react each time you sink bullets into their bodies. Even though I find animations in this game a bit too exaggerated, they sure made the whole experience more fun. Thankfully, it's not like you really need to use covers in GTA 4. Not for the right reason though. The artificial intelligence in this game is completely brain-dead and rarely possesses any real threat to the player. I mean, it's not like the advanced AI was ever among the strongest points of this series, but that's one thing that I hope to see improved when Rockstar moved to the HT era. NPCs' behavior in GTA 4 heavily relies on scripts, so they can barely do anything on their own during the combat. Most of the time, your opponents make themselves an easy target when they either mindlessly rush at you or just sit in one place and occasionally pop out to shoot. Flanking the enemy in GTA 4 is ridiculously easy. You can even run straight to their position and they won't even flinch, allowing you to instantly kill them in close quarters. It's possible to die in this game only if you'll be too careless and pretend that you are some sort of an action movie hero. That's probably why there is no option to make a stealth skill, because such ability would have made the combat even less challenging. Enemies never cooperate with each other and act independently, which turns almost every encounter in GTA 4 into a chaotic mess. Honestly, I'd much rather fight with small groups of intelligent foes than blaze through hordes of helpless imbeciles. What's the point of all those cool animations and enhanced graphical fidelity when NPCs still behave like morons and barely interact with the environment? And this is where my biggest disappointment lies. You know, I still remember how GTA 4 was hyped as something revolutionary that would make every other game in existence irrelevant, and while I can't deny that it's definitely ambitious, what we've got is not something groundbreaking. Deep at its core, it's yet another GTA with most of its old flaws, just on a different engine. I'm not asking here for something drastically different, like turning GTA into a first-person RPG with a fully destructible environment and 20 different endings. It's just, after such a significant technological leap, I was expecting to see a drastic increase in the scope and quality of its gameplay. A better AI, extensive customization options, additional side activities, more freedom on the missions. Instead, while some things like gunplay and physics were improved, the other parts of GTA 4 not only remained on the same level, but even lost some of the features present in the previous games. While I can understand the removal of things like the RPG elements of San Andreas, the omission of vehicle customization is unforgivable for a game that is focusing on driving so much. Another crucial part of GTA games that could have benefited from a new engine is the story missions design. Giving the player more freedom in figuring out new ways to accomplish tasks would have tremendously improved the replayability of GTA 4. But unfortunately, Rockstar took exactly the opposite direction, which they follow in all their recent games. Once again, I'm not criticizing the basic principles on which every GTA is built upon. Drastically changing the core gameplay loop that brought this series to the top of the market wouldn't have been a wise decision, but previous GTA games hardly ever tried to control literally every single step of the player during the missions, and gave you some room for coming up with unusual solutions for each task. This time, in most cases, you are forced to follow a very specific path through heavily scripted set pieces that developers prepared for you. Try to do something clever, like blocking the road in advance to make your escape from the ambush easier. Congratulations, you broke the game. In this particular example, the car that I left to block the ambushers disappeared without a trace after triggering the script, only to crash the entire game once the cutscene has ended. For a sandbox experience, GTA 4 is surprisingly unprepared for the possibility that the player would come out with a more creative solution than developers had in their minds. This game can be absurdly scripted, to the point when it starts to cheat its own rules for the sake of the plot. One of the most irritating things about GTA 4 is how often it uses a sudden immortality trick to prevent you from completing the mission too early. Perhaps the best example of that bullshit is the mission where you have to chase the biker through the subway. No matter how many bullets you'll sink into his body, you won't be able to kill him until the level designers would allow you to do this. This clash between the story missions and sandbox of GTA 4 is baffling. It feels like Rockstar couldn't decide what type of games they wanted to make. Nothing ruins my immersion more than developers sacrificing the gameplay consistency for creating a dubious plot device. To be fair, if we put aside the lack of cohesion between the story-driven sequences and the open world of GTA 4, I must admit that it has a few examples of excellent level design. One of them was the mission where you had to lure the target by calling the phone number visible through the window of its hideout. Kidnapping Gracie was also one of the most memorable moments of the story, and its follow-up in the DLC was absolutely hilarious. Allowing the player to decide the fate of some characters was a nice touch, even though those mechanics were not as impactful to the story progression as I hoped they would be. But sadly, these are exceptions to the rule, and the huge chunk of the original campaign feels like nothing but a filler. In most cases, you just do the usual routine of driving to a place, watching the cutscene, and killing a bunch of bad guys. Only this time, almost every mission plays exactly the same through the entire game, because you are not allowed to deviate in any way from the set piece you are currently on. And I'm really not a big fan of such excessive babysitting. Instead of guiding each step of the player, why not make the level design more adaptable? Just define the start and ending points of the mission, highlight the optimal path, but allow us to figure out our own solution for every task. It's like Rockstar thinks that players are too stupid to do anything on their own, so I found all those restrictions rather insulting. But what really highlights the problems of the mission design in the original GTA 4 is the lack of checkpoints. Not many things can be as thought-provoking as replaying a bunch of tedious scripted sequences because of a glitch or simply because you didn't play as intended. I think my frustration with the level design of this game has peaked at Pecorino Sprite mission. You have to drive through the entire state, go to a specified point that you can't leave too early, even if the enemy is out of your reach, and then chase the bandits who stole the offering. Hold on, did you just try to shoot tires to slow them down? Oh, you dumb little child, you have to chase those guys and only then kill them. Let's take away controls from you and declare that the offering was destroyed, while you helplessly watch them drive away unharmed. Mission failed, have fun replaying it again from the very beginning, you smartass.
Too bad that gift got destroyed, Mr. Pecorino. I'm sure it was real nice. Maybe you can pick up another one on craplist.net.
You know, I don't think I would have finished the original GTA 4 if there wasn't a fast travel option by using a taxi. It's not always available during the missions, but in most cases, Rockstar gracefully allows you to skip the part where you have to drive to another end of the town. Paying a small fee to save your time is absolutely worth it, though it's not like you'll ever need to care about how much cash you've spent. And here comes another huge problem. The money doesn't have any real value in this game, and this is really strange. The storyline of GTA 4 touches on themes of the American dream and the difficulties of being an immigrant. Paying for debts and starting a new life is supposed to be the main reason why you are taking most of those dangerous jobs, but the game never makes you feel the real need to earn more cash because there are simply not enough ways to spend it. You can't buy or modify cars, there's only limited stock of available outfits, and every other activity literally costs pennies. The only thing that is kinda expensive in GTA 4 are the weapons, but purchasing them doesn't make much sense either, since you'll get plenty of ammo from the dead bodies of your foes. The lack of options to take full advantage of your hard-earned wealth creates another disconnection between the narrative and gameplay in GTA 4. What happens in the cutscenes rarely has any correlation with the actual gameplay. That leads to such a paradoxical situation when robbing the bank, one of the major events of GTA 4, is not making you feel rich. It's just yet another task that you accept not because you are in desperate need of money, but rather because you have to complete it in order to progress further. Acquiring new properties was a great motivation to explore the world and look for side activities. It was making the previous games feel more rewarding. But alas, in GTA 4 even such a basic thing as buying new safe houses was taken away from the player. You just unlock them automatically as you progress through the main story. Even the luxurious penthouse in the city's financial center is not really your home. It was Roman who bought it, which doesn't even make sense considering how many debts this guy has. So despite the clear superiority of GTA 4 in terms of visuals, I felt less invested in its worlds than I was in previous games in this franchise. While I admire the truly enormous effort that Rockstar put into making an authentic recreation of New York, the increase of graphical fidelity in video games has always been a double-edged sword. Even though San Andreas has an outdated engine, developers used its technical limitations to masterfully create an illusion of a vast and diverse world. Ironically, each step closer to photorealism makes it more and more complicated to hide compromises that developers have to make when they create their virtual worlds. And sadly, during the transition to a new engine, Rockstar didn't manage to recapture the same incredible sense of scale from the previous game. Instead of making a massive state with diverse countryside, something that the dev team initially planned to do by the way, this time we've got only one city that had a rather monotonous urban terrain, so despite the better graphics, Liberty City still felt like a massive downgrade in comparison to what we've got in San Andreas. It's understandable that achieving the same level of variety in GTA 4 was impossible due to the hardware limits, so instead, Rockstar had to compete with their old works in terms of depth rather than sheer volume. And to be fair, they almost managed to do that. One thing about the world of GTA 4 that definitely feels like next-gen compared to previous games is the variety of pedestrians. Each of them carries unique characteristics and social behavior. The amount of detail that was put into the streets and architecture of Liberty City is another thing that is worthy of praise. But even though the world of this game looks great on the surface, it's still designed by the same rules as its predecessors. It's indeed impressive that Rockstar carefully recreated so many landmarks of the real New York, but just like before, the absolute majority of buildings in GTA 4 are nothing more than textured boxes that you can't enter. Liberty City has so many cool looking shops and restaurants that I wanted to check out, and maybe try to rob them, but they are nothing more than a static decoration. Hell, you can't even rob the gun shops in this game. You have those weapons lying in front of you, but you can't just kill the manager and take them. It's totally understandable why you are not allowed to do that, but for a game that so desperately tries to be realistic and immersive, stuff like this only ruins the consistency of its world. Previous GTA iterations have this adventure spirit that was making you feel that whenever you go, you'll discover something interesting, like secret places or hidden challenges. But in the attempt of creating a more grounded experience, Rockstar skewed the focus from the world of GTA 4 to its story and characters. You'll visit the absolute majority of accessible buildings during the missions anyway, so there is no real point in exploring Liberty City. You shouldn't care about looking for pigeons and other crap either, because the 100% completion rewards are a joke and not worth your effort. What Rockstar wants you to care about now is the main cast and their worries. The main purpose of most of the side activities in GTA 4 is building a friendship with other characters. If you try to abandon the storyline and mind your own business for too long, your friends will start bombarding you with calls and asking you to hang out with them. And after trying to engage in those activities a few times, I couldn't be asked to ever do them again. Instead of encouraging the player to explore the city and experiment with the new physics system, GTA 4 tries to pretend that the daily routine can be fun. It is not, at least for me personally. If anything, those phone calls felt like some sort of punishment for ignoring the main story for too long. Once I've entirely focused on doing missions, I never got a single call from Roman or anyone else asking me to go bowling with them. The only exceptions were a few scripted events during the missions, but they were actually pretty damn hilarious, to be honest.
Niko, it's Roman. We should go and get drunk together.
Roman, I'm nervous enough about driving a truck full of explosives around the city for Mikhail Faust. He's out of control. Anyway, I'm sorry, but if I get drunk with you and then drive this thing, I'll definitely blow myself up. I'll catch you later, cousin.
GTA 4 is a gaming equivalent of an Oscar bait. It takes itself way too seriously. In their attempt to receive every possible award, Rockstar almost completely forgot about such an important thing as the fun factor. All those issues that I've just mentioned resulted from prioritizing the technology and storyline over the gameplay. When you have such an impressive physics and animation quality, it doesn't matter that controls might be tedious for some players. If your main goal is to create a highly cinematic spectacle, restricting the player as much as possible is the easiest way to ensure that none of your handcrafted set pieces will be accidentally skipped. The same goes for the gritty, desaturated color palette. Yes, it hurts the visual variety, but it perfectly fitted the mood of the story, so it was an acceptable sacrifice in developer's eyes. Everything in this game pushing you to play a specific role, which is definitely good from the narrative point. But at the same time, this also makes you feel subconsciously uncomfortable for not trying to be immersed in the role that you've been given. It's probably the only game in the franchise in which I haven't felt the urge to cause mayhem, because it just didn't feel right to do so. Niko is not some maniac who would do something like stealing a tank and blowing up everything that moves. Well, it's not like the original game has any tanks at all, but you got the point. As much as I love story-driven games, I believe that narrative shouldn't limit the fun, especially if they build upon the open-world design. Previous games in this franchise achieved a great balance between all their elements, making them almost perfect sandbox experiences. But I can't say the same about GTA 4. It puts the creating of dramatic story over everything else, and that's really noticeable.
That it? Can I go now?
Sure. Get out of my face.
To be fair, putting their ambitions ahead of creating a fun game worked out quite well for Rockstar. GTA 4 is still the best rated game in the franchise, and its narrative is one of the few things that is universally praised by fans. Well, about that, I have to admit that I was intentionally avoiding this topic, because, to be perfectly honest, the storyline of GTA 4 did nothing for me. I'm probably biased, because my enjoyment of this game was hindered by the poor technical state of the PC port, clunky controls, broken cover system, brain-dead AI, game-breaking glitches, restrictive mission design with ridiculous fail states, as lack of checkpoints, and other stuff that I've already criticized. But even if we'll put aside all those issues, the storyline of the original campaign is not without flaws either. We are stepping now into major spoiler territory, so if any of you guys still haven't played this game yet, you better use timestamps and skip to the next part of this review. Okay, first of all, the pacing of the GTA 4 narrative is completely messed up. The approximately 30 hours that you have to spend to complete the original campaign are absolutely not justified. The story of GTA 4 goes at such a painfully slow pace that it makes its first 3 or 4 hours feel like a glorified tutorial that is impossible to skip. At least half of the missions in the original campaign don't contribute anything important to the story progression and only artificially stretch the playtime for no good reason. It becomes especially noticeable when you try to compare the narrative structure of GTA 4 to what we had in previous games in this series. Let's take Vice City as our first example. It follows a typical Freytag's pyramid narrative arc with a strong climax in which you kill Diaz and claim his mansion. It's a significant event from both narrative and gameplay perspectives. It changes the world and opens up new possibilities to the player, like purchasing businesses around the city. On the other hand, in San Andreas we had a classic hero's journey cycle. The player is traveling around the world to seek new allies and power so he can fight against the evil that occupied his homeland. It doesn't feature a lot of major events that turns the gameplay upside down, but the constant change of scenery was creating the feeling of a real adventure. Every step forward, every challenge you had to come through made you feel more prepared for the eventual return to your home and facing your arch nemesis.
Okay.
I knew we would understand each other.
once I put it in this simple way.
But when you try to analyze the narrative of GTA 4, at first glance it looks like it's based on a 3-act model, which includes setup, confrontation and resolution. The moment when you have to escape the wrath of the Russian mafia is a so-called inciting incident that sets the whole story in motion. The game set expectations that now you'll go through the part of rising action, where you have to somehow resolve this unpleasant situation. But that never actually happens. You would expect that the Russian mafia won't stop trying to make your life miserable just because you moved to a different part of the town. But instead of dealing with bounty hunters coming for your head, you just start doing the usual routine and don't really try to hide. Hell, you can even return back to the first island and local gangs will completely ignore you. The only thing that Russian mobsters will be able to do is to kidnap Roman ones, and then you won't hear about them for a long time. So this whole event that was supposed to be a pretty big deal doesn't have any significant short-term impact on story progression. You know, the most ridiculous thing about the part in Bohan is that the first guy who gives you a job here is some irritating clown. Manny Escuela is literally nobody, and he's definitely not the guy who can help you to solve this little Russian mafia problem. And yet you are forced to deal with this moron for some reason. Oh yeah, because the game insists that you have to get more cash to resolve this mess, even if it's basically not true. You know, I would have gladly paid money for not having to deal with Manny if I would have been given such a choice. In my eyes, he's one of the most annoying characters across all GTA games, and the only good thing about him is that he was killed off rather quickly.
Yo, if I'm gonna make some money, that's the way shit's gonna be.
Alright, I'm just saying.
Whatever, man. Fucking punk.
Okay, we've got slightly carried away. Let's return to our analysis of the narrative structure of this game. Technically, Niko's journey revolves around the two main goals. He pursues the American dream and wants to avenge the death of his squad mates. But as I've already said, GTA 4 never makes you feel the real hardships of being an immigrant. If anything, Niko integrates into American society surprisingly well. None of his employers or friends cares about his origins, he has no troubles with his legal status whatsoever, and hell, he even picks up the girlfriend right off. Honestly, that's just laughable compared to what the real immigrants have to go through, so Rockstar certainly failed to make any solid social commentary regarding this topic.
Алло, Влад говорит. Да, что ты хочешь? Быстрее, я очень занят.
As for Niko himself, his personal story can hardly be described as from rags to riches tale that is usually associated with the American dream concept. Even though he occasionally mentions that he wants to change his life, to make things different this time, he continues to act as a mere hired gun for the entire game. Instead of building his way up and trying to break ties with his criminal past, Niko is completely focused on looking for a man who betrayed him in the past. So neither the player nor the protagonist himself doesn't see much value in the money that he's getting for completing missions, and that's why the narrative curve feels almost completely flat after arriving at Bohan. Everything that happens after that point, including this whole mess with diamonds, is just a background noise that doesn't really matter on your quest to seek revenge. Even a bank robbery just sorta happens without any build-up. The guy who barely knows Niko casually asks him to participate in a federal crime, and our hero agrees on that without a second thought. I mean, why should anyone hesitate in such a case? A bank heist is the same thing as stealing cars and killing street thugs, right?
If there is a problem, I'll go. No trouble. I have other ways of making money.
There's no problem. Jerry just likes to think he knows best about everything, which is why he's been married 3 times already and still won't admit he likes men.
No problem.
Jokes aside, it's a shame that one of the best missions in GTA 4 ended up not having any long-term consequences. After getting so much money, you would expect Niko to use it for upward mobility and finally try to step away from participating in criminal activities. Imagine if that last Pegorino's request happened after Niko started to settle down in Liberty City or even planned to propose to Kate. That would have backed up the whole American dream is a lie narrative, and would have made the ending feel less sudden and abrupt. But instead, Niko continues that vicious cycle of doing dirty jobs for paranoid crime lords, even though he doesn't have many reasons to do so anymore. And that's why I think that the last line about "this is what the dream feels like" doesn't make much sense, because having tons of cash is not the equivalent of the American dream. And you know what is a definition of the American dream in the eyes of the rockstars themselves? Well, if we'll take a look at the achievement with the same name from San Andreas, apparently it's buying a house. Something that you can't do in GTA 4, by the way.
It's the American dream. He's talentless, pointless and tedious. And we're talking about him because advertisers will pay for spots on this show.
Let's think about that for a second.
While I believe that Rockstar didn't go far enough with the American Dream team, it doesn't mean that GTA 4 narrative is a complete failure. It would be wrong to say that when the game has such an excellent plotline about tracking down the man who betrayed Niko's unit. This is where GTA 4 narrative really shines. Despite the lack of any progression in its middle part, the game does an excellent job in showing how revenge has become an obsession to Niko. This betrayal dramatically changed the course of his life, and that's why the moment when you finally meet the traitor feels like the real ending of GTA 4. It lacked explosions and hordes of cannon fodder that you had to fight through, but this confrontation with Darko Brevic was more intense than the whole final part of the game for me. I love how GTA 4 shocks the player with how low the price was for Darko's betrayal, and then asks you how much money you were taking to kill people. I think it was played masterfully. It's one of the most powerful moments of the entire GTA franchise in my eyes, and it's a shame that Rockstar didn't let us see how Niko would live with the choice that you've made in this mission. I'm convinced that moving the resolution of this plotline to the midpoint of the game would have significantly benefited the pacing of the story overall. But it is what it is, and instead of a classic U-shaped narrative curve, we have this weird and uneven story development with a flat middle part and two climax points in the end that are too close to each other.
Traitor's junkie lived after hunting him for over a decade. Shit! Someone hand me the keys to the fucking city.
To conclude the storyline topic, let's talk about the roles of Jimmy Pecorino and Ray Bulgarin in the original campaign. I find it really strange how Rockstar handled those two characters and the whole final act of the game. The way how GTA 4 all of a sudden treated Pecorino as one of the main antagonists doesn't make any sense, because we barely even get to know this guy. Meanwhile, Ray Bulgarin, the catalyst of many troubles Niko had to go through in the past, ends up as a loose end. It's weird how during its first hours, GTA 4 constantly makes it look like this man will play an essential role in your journey, but all those hints led to nowhere. Ultimately, Bulgarin showed up in the original storyline only twice, even less than such a useless piece of shit as Manny Escuela. Can you believe it? Ray is such a criminally undeveloped character that deserved much better treatment than Rockstar gave to him. And even though Bulgarin appears later in the final DLC, he was turned here into a complete joke, which made it even more disappointing.
And now I'm going to fuck with you, you little cunt! You are dead! 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 You understand?
No. Could you say it again, please?
Fuck you!
I'm still not getting it. What about a third time?
Cunt!
Bye.
Honestly, it's not the only weird omission in the final act of the original game. Like, where in the hell was Paki when Niko was avenging the death of his sister? It's also apparent that you were going to decide the fate of Ray Boccino and Phil Bell in a similar fashion to Dwayne, Playboy X and McCreary Brothers, but that choice was removed from the final version. I suspect that all those last-minute changes happened because at some point Rockstar decided to make interconnected stories between DLCs and the original game. It's really complicated to keep track of all those plot lines simultaneously, and Jim Fitzgerald's retcon is proving that. And while it was nice to witness the same events from different perspectives, I would rather prefer to have a more concise story without unnecessary filler.
I guess we're rich then. Hold on to it, brother. You bet your balls on it.
So yeah, as you can see, there is quite a lot of stuff I don't like in GTA 4. Honestly, I never realized before how many things made this game less enjoyable for me. Well, I guess I've made it clear enough that if this review was only about the original GTA 4, I wouldn't have recommended it. But since we are talking about the complete edition, I absolutely had to include my thoughts about its DLCs as well. Don't worry, I'm not going to talk about them for another hour and will try to keep it short. Sometimes I really can't help myself in this regard.
Yes, yes I do. Oh, shit! This is awful!
This, of course, I know.
Anyway, as expected, Rockstar took the criticism of the original GTA 4 into account and tried to fix at least some of its issues in episodes from Liberty City. First of all, they introduced a bunch of quality of life improvements, such as mid-mission checkpoints and instant access to services like weapons and vehicle delivery. Though the long-awaited checkpoint system is slightly inconsistent. In some cases it instantly throws you back to action, but most of the time you still have to use your phone every time you want to make a new attempt. Maybe it was done to avoid possible soft locks. Returning to the last checkpoint is not magically restoring your ammo supplies, so there is a chance that you can end up with bare hands in the middle of the fight. But regardless, the abundance of checkpoints almost completely eliminated the need to repeat lengthy scripted sequences and improve the pacing overall. The only time when I was ever frustrated with episodes from Liberty City was the mission where you have to race with Brucey and Maury through a narrow passage near the coastline. I was completely unprepared that all of a sudden GTA 4 will decide to humiliate me for my poor driving skills. Well, now you can see why I hate sports cars in this game so much.
You don't want to overshoot the third. Bring her home, bitches! Bring her home, bitches!
Sadly, the artificial intelligence in DLCs remained on the same subpar level, if not worse. Rockstar tried to teach NPCs some new tricks, like throwing Molotov cocktails at the player, but in the absolute majority of cases they were just killing themselves instead. It really feels like GTA 4 has some fundamental issues in terms of AI, because it's hard to believe that there was really nothing that Rockstar could do to fix this mess. Yes, it's an open-world game, so pathfinding issues are not really that surprising, but is it really that difficult to at least make enemies not to kill each other? Your allies' behavior is not any better, so calling for backup completely turns the combat in GTA 4 into a comedy skit. The recurrent technical issues of the PC version is another major disappointment of episodes from Liberty City. You would expect Rockstar could figure out how to make their engine run better on our platform, especially considering that the last DLC was released almost 2 years after the original game. But the technical state of this PC port has remained largely unchanged, with the same stuttering issues, crashes and graphical glitches as before. You can't make this shit up. Apparently Rockstar was so understaffed they couldn't put any resources in proper testing of this game. Or they simply didn't care about the quality of the PC version, hard to tell for sure.
We all gotta go someday.
You're shutting up, man, Terry. That shit is fucked up. Come on, man, help a brother out.
But aside from completely hopeless AI and lack of technical improvements, I think Rockstar did a great job overall. Each DLC introduced tons of new content, such as new guns, vehicles and side activities. Some of those new features were nothing more than a gimmick, like a gang formation mechanic in The Lost and Damned, which was used only in a few missions. The other activities are slightly more fleshed out, like the club management in the Ballad of the Gay Tony. But all of them enhanced the player's experience and gave more reasons to stay longer in Liberty City. Stuff like base jumping, gang wars, road rush-esque biker racers, drinking contests and other mini-games made the open world of GTA 4 feel more meaningful. The only downside of DLCs is that they somehow offer even fewer customization options than the original game had. I can understand why you can't buy new outfits in the first DLC, but the lack of clothes in stores in the Ballad of the Gay Tony doesn't make sense considering its glamorous image. Rockstar didn't even try to resolve the issue with the lack of opportunities to spend money, so you'll participate in all those activities either for fun or achievements purposes. I also don't understand why the player loses access to some of the mini-games after the Lost and Damned ending, but at least you are not forced to deal with your friends anymore and can freely explore the city, which made the game a lot better in my eyes. But probably the most significant gameplay innovations for the GTA series were introduced in the Ballad of the Gay Tony, and it was a new scoring system and missions replay. The latter is undoubtedly a fantastic feature. Personally, I was really glad that keeping tons of save files to replay specific moments of the game was no longer needed, but as for the mission scoring, I have mixed feelings about this new feature. On the one hand, giving additional challenges to the player is not an inherently bad thing, especially considering that those objectives are optional and technically not even required for 100% completion of this DLC. But on the other hand, most of those challenges are nothing more than routine checklist stuff, like headshot kills, damage taken, or even your shooting accuracy. I mean, each of those objectives is nothing really outrageous on its own, but you have to achieve them all within a really tight time limit. You can't use checkpoints or fast travel either, because the game would refuse to accept your stats after that. To make things worse, during your first playthrough of the mission, you don't even know what objectives you have to complete. So, in order to achieve 100% completion of every mission, you'll most certainly have to replay the entire DLC at least once. Of course, unless you'll play with the guide right from the start. But screw that, I didn't want to spoil the story for myself for the sake of some completionist bullshit. Even though I enjoyed the Ballad of the Gay Tony missions a lot more than the original game, I had no desire to replay them so soon, so I just ignored those objectives and had fun. Even though the mission scoring is optional, I see it as another step toward taking away even more control from the player.
Okay, man, I got it. But you should chill out, bro.
Let me decide when to chill out! Go!
As for the narrative department, this time Rockstar provided more focused experiences, each taking around 7 hours to complete. Both new stories are somewhat predictable and don't try to make any deep social commentary, but unlike the original campaign, they are not overstaying their welcome. In The Lost and Damned, you take the role of Johnny Klebitz, a man who tries to keep his biker club together. But all his efforts almost go in vain after the return of Billy Gray, the previous leader of the gang, who immediately brings a lot of trouble. The whole narrative of this DLC is built around the rivalry between Johnny and Bill that eventually cripples the entire gang and puts it on the verge of destruction. The story of The Lost and Damned revolves around themes such as loyalty, brotherhood and drug addiction, but it's definitely not as heavy as the journey of Niko. Overall, switching the focus to the biker stuff was an excellent decision that freshened up the familiar formula. And navigating the streets of Liberty City on 2 wheels was a lot more fun for me personally.
Good night, buddy.
The Ballad of the Gay Tony, on the other hand, almost completely ditches the serious tone and offers the player a lot more frivolous story. Luis Lopez doesn't have such a deep background compared to the other 2 protagonists of GTA 4. He simply wants to enjoy his life to the fullest and gets dragged into criminal activities mostly against his will. The last DLC focuses on the glamorous side of Liberty City, with its nightclubs, casual socializing and getting laid with beautiful ladies. Surprisingly, even though Luis might look like some mischievous playboy who cares only about sex and money, He is not a one-dimensional character and has a more complex personality. He has some obvious loyalty issues, but it's hard to blame him for the lack of dependability, considering his friends and partners usually get him into trouble. This inner conflict can be seen through the relations between Louis and Tony. They are often frustrated with each other, but their father-son bonds are surprisingly well written. Louis is a lot more calm and rational than the other two protagonists of GTA 4, and he also doesn't yell like some deranged maniac during the fights, which is a massive plus in my eyes. Personally, I consider him one of the best protagonists in the entire GTA franchise, and it's a shame that he wasn't starred in a proper, full-length game.
I gotta go, okay? But here, take this. Cuídate.
Luis, take your life more seriously, baby, please. Don't be like your father.
Look at your brother, look at your sister. They're doing so well. Mommy, I know, but what do you expect? I gotta hang out with morons like these two, okay? Bye.
But what really makes the Ballad of the Gay Tony so different is not its colorful tone and characters, but its mission design. It's a complete antithesis to the grounded experience of the original game, with a lot of over-the-top and simply insane moments. Louis constantly finds himself in situations like stealing a moving train or running away from an armored tank. And then, a few missions later, you steal one of such tanks and cause mayhem in the city by yourself. The Ballad of the Gay Tony is ridiculous, but that's what makes it so much more memorable and fun than the original game. Not everyone liked that change, but I think that ultimately making DLCs so distinctively different was the right call. You didn't enjoy a story about an immigrant looking for revenge? How about a grumpy badass biker that deals with tensions within his gang? Or a shameless womanizer who always ends up involved in some nonsense? Basically, you can pick your own GTA 4 experience and stick with it exclusively, and this is great. Even though expansions and the main campaign have overarching events, each of them are good on their own. So even though I didn't like the original game that much, episodes from Liberty City added the diversity that was so much needed in GTA 4 and made the whole package worth it. If not for the technical issues of the sport, I would even have said that it's a great deal, but since playing this game on PC is still such a gamble, I really can't recommend it, even if it's cost only $5 on sale. In conclusion to this review, I want to repeat once again that I don't consider GTA 4 to be a terrible game. I mean, I'm personally convinced that no game can be completely hopeless if someone is willing to talk about it for over 1 hour. But GTA 4 could have undeniably done a lot of things better, and its disastrous technical state on PC only added up to my frustration with it. While Rockstar fixed some of the flaws of the original game in DLCs, GTA 4 still had a lot of issues that prevent me from enjoying it as much as the previous games in this series. For me personally, this was the moment when the GTA franchise went in the wrong direction, trading its sandbox mechanics for a more cinematic experience. The next Rockstar games after GTA 4 only become even more restrictive in terms of their level design, and I can't say that I'm a big fan of that. Linear scripted set pieces are not an ultimately bad thing, and I'm sure there's a lot of people who enjoy such an approach, but I believe that the rich narrative and emergent gameplay can coexist with each other. It's just Rockstar didn't quite manage to find the right balance between those two elements in GTA 4. And going forward, I don't think that GTA 5 is really that better in this regard. It has its own share of design issues, but that's another topic. Honestly, after seeing what happened with the latest GTA games, I'm still hesitating to buy Red Dead Redemption 2. It looks incredible, but judging by reviews, I'm not sure that I'll enjoy playing it. I also don't have confidence that I'll be able to run this game at a stable 60 FPS at my native 1440p resolution with decent graphical settings. So that's why, instead of buying Red Dead Redemption 2 when it was on sale, I've decided to revisit GTA 4 and analyze my difficult relations with this game.
I think you should leave, sir, before I call the police.
I think you should leave, sir, before I...
Dude, it is the 21st century. Let me tell you something. You've got a job wiping rich pricks' asses, and for some reason you seem a little pleased with yourself.
Will you leave?
Trust me, man, nothing would please me more.
Okay, just one more thing that I wanted to tell you guys. To be honest, there is another reason why I wanted to make this video. Even though I always had conflicting feelings toward the original GTA 4, I can admit that it significantly influenced me. After all, this is one of those games that motivated me to start writing my own reviews back in the late 2000s. To be more specific, it was not even because I was disappointed with the game itself, but with how the major gaming outlets handled its media coverage back then. I still remember how one of the biggest PC-centric magazines in my region gave GTA 4 a glowing 10 out of 10 score, while completely ignoring the technical issues of the sport. They admitted later that they just reviewed the console version because they were so desperate to be the first to review this game and hoped that no one would notice. So these professional journalists didn't even play GTA 4 on PC because they cared more about the eye-catching headline than providing a constructive and honest critique. Meanwhile, I spent an entire month writing and editing this review on a 13-year-old game, even though I know that it's not a hot topic right now and the majority of viewers won't watch even half of it. But for those of you who are still there, I hope that this video was thought-provoking and made you look at GTA 4 from a different perspective. Not in a way that you suddenly start to hate this game despite enjoying it before, of course not. But maybe now you'll have a better understanding of why it's perhaps the most controversial GTA game ever. You know, I would love to hear what do you think about GTA 4. Am I insane and just don't get it, or at least some of my criticism was justified? And if you found this review entertaining, I would appreciate it if you'll share this video with your friends, because, to be honest, YouTube algorithms suck. Even though I'm just one guy with a full-time job and English is not my native language, I always strive to improve the production quality of my videos. But YouTube prefers quantity over quality, which I really don't want to do, so I can only rely on your support, guys. I'm definitely not done with the GTA games yet, and plan to eventually make at least one more video related to this franchise, and I also have a lot of other cool stuff in the works that might interest you. So yeah, thanks for watching, don't forget to subscribe and stay tuned for more.